Okay, we are live on the YouTube, everybody. How's it going, people? Man, there are so many things that I have to tell you. We're going to do a lot here. I've got about an hour. Things have just ramped up to sort of crazy levels. 99% of it, all good. There's just a lot of cool announcements that I'm going to make today. I want to tease a couple things that we have upcoming. My travel schedule has been completely bananas. The next 2 months are probably going to be the craziest 2 months of my lives. My lives. I have many lives of my life. I just did a really awesome interview through Learn Liberty that we're posting next week. That was just great. I'm still vibrating a little bit because it was just like one of those ones where you're kind of just right there with the guest the entire time, and we talked about all the stuff that I'm constantly talking about on here. All right, cool. So we've got about an hour. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do some Q&A. So if you are on Patreon, you guys get first dibs, but we will take questions if you want to throw some questions in the Facebook comment section. But if you first dibs on Patreon, which we already have some loaded up, I have a fancy iPad right here. And then we will also take questions via YouTube Super Chat. So I think you guys know how to use that already. You throw in couple bucks, it boosts your comment up because obviously the comment section in a live YouTube chat can be quite bizarre. So you can go ahead and do that. And then I want to give you a couple of updates on things. First off, more than anything else, what I want to tell you about is I am finally making I would consider this really my official return to stand-up comedy this Sunday, April 8th at the Irvine Improv, which is outside of LA right here, about an hour away from LA. I am headlining, and it's just me, people. Just me. I'm going to do probably about an hour. Maybe there'll be a special guest, maybe not. We'll see about that. We'll do some crowd interaction, play with you guys, some Q&A, all that good stuff. But basically, so I think some of you guys know this. So I did stand up in New York City for about 12 years. And I lived that life. I lived the good parts of it, the bad parts of it, the struggling road comic, the guy standing out on Times Square corners for literally 6 nights a week for sometimes 2 hours a night, handing out tickets no matter what the weather was, middle of storms we were out there doing it, sometimes performed for 4 people. I had sort of ups and downs of success. At one time, I think I was the youngest comic ever passed at the Comedy Cellar. At least that's what I was told. The Comedy Cellar is sort of the it club in New York City. And did it for about 12 years. Then I kind of shifted away from it the last 6 years or so. I've been in LA about 5 years, started going more down the political route. I was always kind of doing political stuff with stand-up anyway, but obviously what I'm doing now is not sort of strict stand-up. So I'm getting back in. I did a gig about a month and a half ago at the Comedy Store here in LA, and it's funny, I don't need it that much. So it was really freeing and good. So I just wrote up a ton of new stuff, going to try to blend in some old stuff and just kind of see what happens. And I'm psyched to do it. So it is at the Irvine Improv on April 8th. I'll probably do about an hour or so. And you will truly see someone working through everything. And I think it'll be really cool if you dig what I do. So we've got the link right down below for tickets. I think there's some tickets still available. It's about a 400-seat club from what I understand. I haven't been there yet, actually, but I had Bob Saget here a couple weeks ago who told me it's one of his favorite clubs in the country. So I'm super psyched for that. And that's one thing that I wanted to tell you. Okay, couple other things. So here's a big one, because you guys have been asking me about this literally for years. And I know I say literally a lot, but I literally mean this. For years, you guys have been asking me, when is this Thomas Sowell interview happening? About a year ago, we were told it was going to happen, and then we were having trouble coordinating. I believe that he is 87, either 86 or 87 years old, so he's not traveling a ton. So we are going up to Stanford next Tuesday, a week from yesterday, people. We are going up to Stanford. We are renting a studio at Stanford University. We're flying up the whole team up there, and we are doing an hour, hopefully an hour plus interview with Thomas Sowell. I know he's been making the rounds a little bit. He did, I think, a phone interview with Ben Shapiro and 1 or 2 other people, but we are doing a live, full-on, unedited video interview. I am beyond thrilled to do this. I think he's probably the most requested guest that we've had on since we've been doing this show. I think the basic foundational principles that he's talking about classical liberalism and libertarianism and role of government and role of the individual and all that stuff that you guys know I love, I think he is basically the Jedi master of all of it, and he's been talking about this stuff for 40 some odd, if not longer, years. So I'm thrilled to be doing that. And just quickly, shows like that. So we're going up to Stanford, so we have to fly our whole team up there, so fly a bunch of people. We're renting a studio for a couple $1,000. There's obviously other expenses related to travel and all that. We can do that if truly, the only reason we can do that is because of the support that you guys give us on Patreon. So that is a big shout out, thank you to those of you that support us on Patreon, or whether it's on PayPal or however else you do it, which you can go to patreon.com/Rubin Report if you want to support that. But we'll never make the money back through YouTube, Rev, on what it'll cost, the thousands of bucks it'll cost to rent the studio and all that. So I just want to thank you guys for that. I'm super psyched to do it. I couldn't be happier to spend a couple $1,000 on something like that we're going to do. All right, let me jump into a couple questions here, and then I'm going to give you some other cool things that are happening. All right, super chat, no question. Just want you to keep up the good work. I shall, my friend. Patreon. How can we get this crazy world back to a place of talking real issues and not defending ourselves against hateful comments because we're talking about facts and not emotion? I mean, this is really kind of the issue of our time, right? And this is where social media, it's like, it's just a tool. You can either use it for good or you can use it for evil. Look, how did you guys find what I do here? Well, I'm able to reach you because of YouTube. I'm able to reach you because of Twitter and Facebook and all of those things. But at the same time, the endless amount of fighting and hate, it just seems to be ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And I have a very dedicated group of anonymous trolls that really do not like me. They pop up usually on YouTube and Twitter more than Facebook, because Facebook's a place where generally you have to have a real picture and be a real person. But yes, there seems to be this sort of subset of humans right now who are not trolls in the sort of good way of trolling. There's a way to troll and make memes and mock people and be funny and silly and subversive that's actually kind of cool. And if you get it, they can insult you and it's like a compliment. And I get some of those. Sometimes I share those memes or videos when people are kind of mocking me or whatever. It's all good. There's this sort of other set, though, of people. Most of them are anonymous, but not all of them, who just want to watch the world burn. To quote Alfred from The Dark Knight when he was talking about the Joker to Batman. They just want to destroy everything. They just want to fight with everybody. They want to upset everybody. They want to trigger everybody. And I think that, unfortunately, because for whatever reason, our brains seem to go to be more affected by negativity than positivity, although I think we should all be working on it. I certainly am. We seem to be focusing on those people, and they're really ruining the conversation. And by the way, I'm not even mocking or belittling people for anonymity online. I have actually no problem with anonymity online. And for those of you that are actually trying to engage with ideas that are, dangerous ideas or whatever you want to talk, or even not even that dangerous, but just ideas that you're afraid if you say something about healthcare, you're going to get fired. I mean, that's the ridiculousness of where we're at the point. Or if you come out as a conservative or something, you're going to have trouble at work or whatever it is. So I'm not mocking anonymity in that regard. I think what I would say is that if you use anonymity as like this bludgeon to relentlessly attack people and to only add evil into the discourse, I think you're actually a big part of the problem right now, but I know you don't care. If you're watching this and you're one of those people, you're probably doing it at this very second. So I think we have to figure out a way. Look, my Twitter bio says Twitter is not real life. Twitter is not real life. Social media is not real life. What's real is being with people, talking directly to people, really exchanging ideas and that whole thing. But we're living in a time where that social media stuff, it's leaking into reality. And I did a DM about this about a year ago. I said, that real life is becoming social media, that it's becoming all the trolling and the hate and the anger, and it's breaking up friends and marriages and all this stuff. And we've all had to deal with this. But I would say the best thing that you can do is stand for what you believe in. That's it. Like there's no magic answer to this other than any of you. I suppose if you're watching this and you dig what I do, what you probably like is that I'm here and I'm expressing ideas with the people that I sit across from, and I tell you what I think and I share my thoughts for better or for worse, or whether they're correct or wrong or debatable or whatever you want to say. But not enough people are doing that these days. And I suppose when I started this show a couple of years ago, if there had been many more people doing that, I probably wouldn't have seen an avenue to go ahead and do it. Like if there had been this great national discourse about ideas and we were really honestly dealing with things and all the problems, especially that I was seeing at the time with the left and all that, if that had really been happening, well, then I probably wouldn't be doing this. I don't know what I would be doing, but here we are. So say what you think. I mean, it will, I say this all the time, but if you are afraid to say what you think right now, it will not magically get better down the road. So say what you think. You've got to fight for what you believe in, because don't leave it for other people to fight for what you believe in. All right, a couple other things that I want to tell you before I get back into the questions here, which are loading up pretty quick. Okay, so April 8th, Irvine Improv, link in the description right down below. We've got Thomas Sowell next Tuesday. We're taping it next Tuesday. It'll be up a couple days later in San Francisco. And then, as most of you probably know at this point, I am going on tour with Jordan Peterson. So I'm opening with Jordan. We've started. We did one in LA at the Orpheum, and we did one last week at the Beacon Theater, which is this gorgeous 3,000 seat theater in New York City. It was a surprise that I was going to be there, and the PA guy came on and he said, shut off your phones, no flash photography, and now the host of the Rubin Report. And before he could even say my name, the crowd went bananas. I have never experienced anything like that before. It was particularly cool because my folks were in the audience, and I'm warming up the crowd, getting everybody going. These people are super excited. The line was around a square block in New York City. It was down Broadway, down 73rd, down up, as it were, up Amsterdam and back up whatever that is, 73rd, 74th over there, but a full square block over there. It was just, the energy was amazing. So I will be opening up for Jordan. I'm doing 11 of the first 12 events. So if you're going to any of those, and you can check, I think on Ticketmaster, or you can check on his website, what the dates on all of those are. I'm doing 11 of the first 12, including the UK. I'm not doing Detroit. No offense, Detroit. I would love to do it at the Fillmore Theater. I've been there before. It's a gorgeous theater, but I've got a conflict related to actually doing this show, so I can't do that. And then Jordan tacked on about another 20 dates. I'm going to do as many of those as possible. We're trying to figure it out with my schedule at the moment. But I hope to meet as many of you guys out there as possible. I've been meeting you guys all over, all these stops that I'm doing everywhere, and it's really been it's really cool. I mean, it really is cool. Like, people are waking up, I think, in big numbers to the craziness. So it's very exciting. So I will be with Jordan Peterson, and it's just been awesome. I mean, spending time with Jordan, and it's like, man, I will tell you, I will say this now, and I'm sure it's the exact same thing I will say at the end of the tour. This man is there's no bullshit here. The guy, everything that this guy says publicly is the same exact stuff that we talk about privately. I had dinner with him right before the event in New York City, and we did 2 hours, and there were agents there, and a bunch of other people, and his daughter and his wife and a few others. I mean, we did 2 hours of cultural Marxism and postmodernism and all that right at the dinner table. Then I go to the event with him in the car. We get up to the green rooms up there. We're talking about it the whole time. He then needed 5 minutes of alone time just to get his thoughts sorted out, and then just goes. So it's awesome. So most of them are going to be me warming up the crowd at the beginning, then Jordan giving his lecture, and then me coming out and sort of facilitating the Q&A with the audience. It sounds like some of them might actually be sit-downs where we're both there the whole time, and I'll kind of Q&A them on the 12 Rules for Life, but we don't have an exact plan on that yet. But I'm just super excited. There's great energy around it. And I think that this whole crew of people that, as it's become to be known, the intellectual dark web, whether it's the Weinstein brothers or Sam or Ben or Jordan or whoever else it is, a lot of us are trying to do more public events and live podcasts and things like that. I'm potentially working on an Australia trip that sounds like it's coming together. So there's just a lot of cool stuff on that front. So I hope to meet as many of you guys as possible. Okay, here we go. Patreon, can you please have somebody on to discuss psychiatric drugs and their connection with mass shootings? Also, what is your personal opinion on the matter? Thanks, and I love your show, Dave. Yeah, so I do want to do this. So look, we obviously are going to do more on guns. This is becoming the discussion of the day, and we have to touch on it more, and I want to touch on it more. I want to learn more about it. Truly about, I know a lot about the laws that we have, but I don't know a tremendous amount about the differences from all the guns. And it's pretty clear that most of the people online, including some of the pros on this, don't know much of a difference either when everyone's talking about semi-automatics and all this different stuff. So I absolutely will do more on guns. I agree with you that we need to have the mental health discussion on this. We are not discussing it enough. If you go, I think by the very definition, if you go to a school or a church or a temple or a mosque or a mall or wherever it is, and you shoot and murder and maim innocent people, by definition, there is a psychological condition there. Does having certain weapons make it easier to kill and injure a lot of people very quickly? It does, but we have to have an honest discussion in a holistic sense, and unfortunately, we're just not doing that at all. I got into a little Twitter kerfuffle yesterday with Michael Ian Black, who I've had on the show before, who's a progressive, a lefty. When I had him on, I obviously didn't agree with a lot of the stuff he said, but I was happy to sit there and listen to his ideas. But he sent out, what I think was, in effect, basically a crazy tweet yesterday, blaming the NRA for what happened at YouTube, before he even had any concept of what had happened, because it was right as it was all unfolding, and calling the NRA a terrorist organization. I mean, this is what is destroying the discourse in this country. And we've got to all kind of reel back and realize that the whole point of living in a free society is that you're supposed to disagree with people and you're supposed to argue and get to a place that you can just maximize freedom for as many people as possible. If your starting position is the NRA is a terrorist organization, or ban all guns, or on the other side that everyone should have tanks, we got a real problem there, right? We got a big chasm there. We got to get this thing to be a little bit more manageable. So I definitely want to have those discussions. And yes, it seems that a disproportionate amount of the shooters do seem to be on these drugs, right? It just does seem to be that way. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of discussion about that on mainstream media, because so many go watch mainstream media for a while and start counting how many of the commercials are for these very drugs. So we have to have some discussion about that too. So yes, I promise you that I will get in on that. Okay. Wow, there's a lot here. Okay, your defending my liberal principles is now a conservative position, quote, is one of my favorite starters in political discussions now. Thanks. I think it's probably the most quotable thing that I've said in the last couple of years that sort of resonates with people. If you are a liberal and you want, liberalism really means live and let live. As you guys know, without getting into a whole classical liberal thing, briefly, if you believe in the individual and that you should live your life as you see fit, that's the foundational principle of liberalism. If you believe that we should judge as groups and we should be caught in identity politics and all of this other stuff and this intersectional mess of an oppression Olympics where victimhood is virtue, then that's leftism. That's what progressivism is these days. So there's nothing liberal about progressivism. So I've tried to uncouple the word. The word liberal is dirty to anyone on the right, right? And to conservatives, right? Anyone. And I've really tried to uncouple those things and show them that liberals, in the classical sense of where liberalism started, is not your enemy. I think I've actually made some headway, and the fact that I hear about classical liberalism all the time now, and sometimes I'm walking down the street, and literally the other day I'm walking down the street, someone yelled at me, classical liberalism, put up his hand, high five, and we just kept walking. I mean, something's happening. And I think we've been a little bit of a part of that, and it's very cool. But yes, defending my liberal principles of freedom and free speech and tolerance, and it goes down the line, is becoming a conservative position, which is why I'm finding it easier to talk to conservatives that I disagree with when it comes to abortion or the death penalty or sometimes even gay marriage or a slew of other issues, where I'm finding talking to leftists in an honest, forget leftists, progressives, in an honest manner is becoming more difficult. That being said, I just sent out a tweet, I believe it was Monday morning, where I listed out about 15 progressives that I'd love to have on the show. Obviously Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, but then some lower level and comic people like Chelsea Handler and Sarah Silverman and Michael Moore and Gavin Newsom and Van Jones and a whole bunch of other people. Van actually had agreed to do it publicly on Twitter about a year ago, and then CNN, their people said no. But I'd be happy to sit down with these people if they'll have an honest discussion. I truly want to hear their ideas, like I would hear any other idea. But if you're going to do it within attacking people or attacking me or just bad-mouthing everybody, I just don't want to play that game. As the kids say, I don't want to be dragged, and I'm not going to play in that game of personal insults and all that. But I'm happy to talk to those people, truly. Let's see. Super chat, I want you to have my babies, but I need to know you wouldn't abort them. Did your live stream discussion move your position on abortion at all? Look, as I said to Ben in the last time we talked about abortion, I find myself begrudgingly pro-choice. I don't think, and I think, by the way, that most people, forget the hysterics, that sort of fetishize abortion. I think most people that are pro-choice are begrudgingly pro-choice. I think, and I'd have to look at some numbers on that, but I suspect that most people are, that people don't relish the idea of abortion. I think most people do acknowledge that it is ending a life, and we can get into the debate about when does life start, is it right when the sperm meets the egg and all of that. But I find myself begrudgingly pro-choice because I believe in the individual, and I know this is where some conservatives will say, well, wait a minute, don't you believe in the individual that is in the womb? You know, at this point, then I'm willing to continue this conversation. I truly am. I would put the life of the woman and the decisions and the mental capacity of the woman ahead of that. My cutoff point would be about 20 weeks. They've done many studies where that's basically where the fetus starts feeling pain. And I know, as I discussed with Ben, that's a little bit arbitrary, because to say that the 20 weeks is the cutoff, well, you're obviously acknowledging then that 18 weeks is a life. And I am acknowledging that. But I don't think taking away the choice, that the government taking away the choice is the right thing. And this is a place where conservatives, who are supposed to be for limited government, they want the government to tell you what to do with your body. Now, what they would say is, well, they're defending life, because the Constitution says we're going to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So there's there's a little bit of wordplay there, but there's an interesting philosophical debate, and I will gladly have that conversation with anyone that wants to have it. But again, I would say I know at least 2 women in the last 2 or 3 years that had abortions. It was not a great choice. It doesn't even matter whether they were irresponsible or whatever it was. But it's just a painful one. And that's why when you hear all these people screaming about how they're so right and everyone else is so wrong, or Republicans hate women and Democrats hate babies, it's all just stupidity. And I would say that the best thing that we could do right now, whether it comes to abortion or guns or whatever else is going on, we've got to figure out a way to start tuning out some of these crazy voices. They are just trying to tear us apart. And just remember, and this is maybe more important than anything else, and I try to practice this in my own life, people never act like this in reality. You know, all day long you can be yelled at on social media by random people and anonymous people and whatever. When you're walking down the street, if someone just started screaming at you, telling you to go fuck yourself, you crazy person, and they were wearing a pink fox mask, as half of Twitter does, or whatever it is, some anime character, you'd be like, I don't think that person's right. I'm not going to engage them. But for some reason, we engage everybody on social media. I'm really trying not to. I'm trying to do my basic weekends off thing, which I think is catching on a little bit, because I keep getting emails that you guys are trying to do it too. I think what I'm going to try to do going forward is really not do any social media on the weekends at all, so Saturdays and Sundays. I believe Jesus took the weekends off Twitter. I'm going to try not to do it all, except if I'm at an event, you know, and I'm either, you know, if I'm doing something with Jordan on a Saturday night and I want to take a cool picture, or if I'm performing at a comedy club or promoting something, but not being part of it's not good to wake up on a Saturday morning and just see everyone fighting about the same shit they were fighting about on Friday, which is the same shit they're going to fight about on Monday. So I'm going to keep trying to do that, and I know that a bunch of you are doing it too, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Do you have an opinion on the recent Sam Harris-Ezra Klein dispute? Would you consider having Charles Murray on as a guest and also being attacked as a racist? Look, God, you know, this thing about sitting down with people and that you automatically endorse their views is so idiotic and boring. It's actually boring to me. You know, my friend, my mentor, and he's going to be in here in a couple of weeks, Larry King. I've sat down with him before and on camera, and I've also discussed this with him privately. But in his heyday, and I know I've said this before, but in his heyday, CNN, 1985, right? He would sit down on any given night with, you know, the cast of Cheers on one night, then Farrakhan the next night, then David Duke the next night, then a mentalist the next night, and then, you know, a guy that's a magician. I mean, just this crazy array of people. No one in their right mind thought that Larry King, or thinks that Larry King, who's still doing it, by the way, is endorsing all of these ideas. So it's just a horrible way of viewing things, that if you sit down with someone, you automatically endorse their ideas. I just think it's just so terrible. So in and of itself, I don't have a problem having Charles Murray on. I don't know that I can get much more out of him than Sam got out of him in his podcast. But I would say this, that, when the endless the hate machine that just wants to call everyone a racist and a bigot and all of that, and just this nonsense with Vox, and I don't even want to comment on the specifics of all the emails that they went back and forth with, although from what I understand, Sam is going to have Ezra on his show. What I would say is that at some point, everybody gets tired of the nonsense. And for those of us that put ourselves out there and are willing to have these discussions and stake out a position and publicly say, this is who we are, this is what we think, at some point the hate becomes, you just don't want to deal with it. So it's like, I do have to measure that sometimes, because sometimes people reach out to me and I'm just like, on this given week, I don't feel like dealing with this. Whatever the topic may be, like I just don't feel like dealing with the hate. But again, a lot of that is just online noise and not reality. And I know you guys also are coming to me to have these discussions with these people, and I actually enjoy having most of these discussions. So I have to figure out how to negotiate that as best as possible. Okay, super chat. Thanks for all your hard work, Dave. Love the show. What do you think of the idea that social media is the left's equivalent of firearms? The idea that social media is their equivalent, I'm not totally sure what you mean by that. I mean, look, the left, I guess what you're saying is, okay, so the right has guns to protect its rights, I think is what you're saying. The left has social media, meaning they control Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Google and blah, blah, blah. I don't know that the analogy quite is working out for me, but I would say the best thing we can do, because I know a ton of you are as frustrated seemingly with these social media companies as I can be at sometimes. The best thing that can happen is that we have capitalism. We have competition. Somebody's going to go, oh, you're not happy with what YouTube's doing? Well, guess what? We're going to compete and we're going to make a better site. You're not happy with what Twitter's doing? And by the way, these companies do pop up. Most of them fail, but that's what business is all about. But the more that the market needs alternatives to these sites because you express your displeasure or you don't like what Facebook is doing with your data or whatever it is, the more opportunity there will be for new sites to spring up, for more people to make more money on these sites, investors, and see an opportunity and all that stuff. By the way, very quickly, I should address the YouTube shooting yesterday. So I'm not going to even bother mentioning the girl's name. I have not tweeted a picture of her or any of that stuff. If part of this was her wanting fame, she ain't going to get it on my dime. What I would say is it sounds like a lot of this had to do with her frustrations with YouTube. So allow me to be crystal clear. As someone that has been very frustrated with YouTube at times, I think I've been probably the most outspoken person on the platform about the demonetization. And right now, I think we're having some issues with our feed. You guys keep telling me our videos aren't being delivered and people are being unsubscribed and all that. Putting all of that aside, the answer is not violence. I know you know that already if you're watching this, but the answer is not violence. And I'm sure there were other psychological things there. I don't even know anything else about her at this point. It is irrelevant, but you cannot go into a place and start killing people because you're upset with how they do business. The fact that I even have to say that really tells you that we're in a wacky spot. Okay, hey Dave, Jonathan Peugeot versus Brett Weinstein on religion would be awesome, and your own Brooke versus Ben Shapiro, and a couple Swedish guests, including Angry Foreigner and the Sanandaji brothers. I had Tino on. Oh, you referenced that right there. Still love the show. Okay, cool. I will look into Tino's brother, Nima. I think the name's come across before. As far as Yaron and Brett, I know there's been some discussions about it. Everybody's schedules are a little nutty, and we're trying to look into doing more of these as live events. We're also going to be doing a bunch of Rubin Reports live. We're trying to figure out some details on that. I'm working on my agents, and like a whole bunch of things are shifting and moving. But I think the idea of getting some of these out of the studio and in front of live audiences and getting more interaction with you guys, I think will be pretty awesome. So I'm psyched to do that. And speaking of live events, just a reminder, the link is down below. If you are in the LA area this Sunday, April 8th, I am doing an hour of stand-up. Maybe there'll be a surprise guest, maybe not. Maybe I'll do some Q&A, play with you guys. Who knows what's going to happen as I return to stand-up comedy at the Irvine Improv. The link is right down below. Oh, also, I'm just going to, you know what, I'm not even going to, we got something huge coming in May, but I'm not going to tease it out at the moment. But something huge that is a live event that is massive, people, is happening in May. Okay, let's see. I want you to get Linda Sarsour and Tamika Mallory, quiz them on Farrakhan feminism. Stay woke, hombre. By the way, I wrote a review of your Kasich interview. Yeah, I mean, Sarsour blocked me. I had invited her on the show. Obviously now, I haven't tweeted at her in God knows how long, but, I'm sure she's not going to do it now because I've called out her nonsense relentlessly. But yes, the left and the Women's March and all of this intersectional craziness, they are going to have to negotiate how do we have actual racists in our group, because they view victimhood as virtue. And because of that, you're going to have people who hate people based on the color of their skin and their sexuality and all that. And in this case, it's coming out against Jews, but by the way, it's going to come out against Asians, as we're seeing, and it's going to come against them too. It's going to come against everyone. This snake will eat itself. And 20 years from now, if this thing keeps growing and growing and growing, although it will be eating itself the entire time, one day the leaders of this movement who are young right now are going to go, wait a minute, Barack Obama campaigned his first campaign back in 2008 against gay marriage. He was a homophobe. The way that people will talk about people in slavery from way back when. So this is a massive, horrible ideology that has to be destroyed. We don't have to kill the people. We have to break the ideology. And how do you break it? You break it with better ideas. And I think you guys know what my ideas are, which of course are much more related to the individual and freedom. And we need less laws, not more laws. And we can't have utopia because, as Eric Weinstein says, on the way to utopia, you usually take a little detour, you get dystopia. So I don't know what they're going to do about those people. But the irony is they won't purge their worst members because they know that those tactics will eventually be used on them. So you end up having just this sort of circle of hostages where everybody's got a gun aimed at somebody else and going, if you say anything out of the line that I want you to say, you're going to be taken out. And then the thing gets smaller, and then you look around and it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller until there's nobody left. Let's see. Can you try to interview some neo-reactionary or traditionalist persons, especially those involved in the Dark Enlightenment? So I'm actually not totally sure what you're talking about there, but if you follow up, I'll try to address that. Patreon, I have teenage children. I'm wondering if they should go to college with all the things going on these days in the humanities and education departments at colleges. It goes on a little bit more. I get asked this one a lot when I'm going to colleges. I get this particularly. I would say, look, I got a pretty good education. I wish I had spent a little more time studying and a little less time smoking weed at SUNY Binghamton, State University of New York, but it was a public school. My dad said to me when I was in high school, he said, if you go to a public school in New York, they're significantly cheaper and you can get a good education. If you go to that, we'll pay for it. And if you want to go to a private school or out of state, you got to pay. So I looked at what my options were, and SUNY Binghamton was pretty solid academically, and that was the one that I went to. And I was a political science major, so I must have learned something. That being said, yes, there is a lot of problems, of course, with the way people are being taught, with the fact that it seems that the inmates are running the asylum. The conversation that I had earlier this morning, which is our Learn Liberty show for next week, really addresses a lot of this. So hopefully you'll watch it. I don't even want to tease any more than that. But what I would also say is that, part of the college experience is you got to jump from high school to the real world. And hopefully you're going to learn some stuff in college, learn how to critically think and all that. But you also have to learn how to be a person, interpersonal relationships, dating, sex, drugs, whatever you're going to do. And I think humans do need a little time for that, from around 18 to 22 or whatever you want to say. Maybe it would be better that at some point we start having something called late college, where you get to choose at some point from 28 to 50, you get to choose a year where you're allowed to go back to school and somehow you're paid or something. I don't know that. And I don't want the government to do that, by the way. It could be done by private entities. Because I think then people, sometimes when you're older and you go, man, I should have paid more attention then. I really would love to learn about this or that or the other thing. That being said, Greg Gutfeld, who's a buddy of mine who's been on the show, and I go on his show often, he wrote a good piece a couple months back about how there's so much opportunity to learn because of YouTube now, because of the internet. You can listen to discussions from Jordan Peterson and so many of the other people that I've had on the show who will teach you. You can learn maybe more from them than you can in college courses. So I don't know that there's an answer that's the right answer. I think it really is a kind of case-to-case basis. Okay. Super chat, love what you're doing. Would be interested seeing you with Dave Smith, Owen Benjamin, Tom Woods, Norm Macdonald, and Jonathan Peugeot. Okay, so that's the second time he's come up. Macdonald, I've asked a couple times in person. I think he told me he was going to do it, and then I don't know what happened. I've had Owen Benjamin on. He's welcome back. Dave Smith, I think, is a libertarian comedian. I don't know him that well, but I can look into that. Tom Woods also kind of falls into that that line, yeah, I'm happy to keep having these conversations. Guess what? I'm not going anywhere. We're ramping this stuff up, so I will look into it more. Let's see. Would you be willing to have Sam Hyde on your show to discuss censorship in comedy? His show is canceled on Adult Swim because other creators on the network didn't agree with his politics. So he was sort of, I don't know that much about that, but if I'm not mistaken, he was the guy that was creating that thing on Adult Swim that was thought of as alt-right or something. Yes, that would absolutely be a conversation I would be willing to have. Super chat, I'm starting to think that people like Michael Ian Black are actually happy when mass shootings happen because it lets them push their agenda. Am I wrong? Because I hope so. Look, I only know Michael from the hour that I sat with him here and a few minutes before and after. I don't think he's happy. I think, unfortunately, the agenda has actually overridden people's ability to critically think. And if someone is killed, you know, the shooting was unfolding yesterday, and I looked on Twitter and I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Everybody's going to use this to spin which way. Half the people want it to be a white, middle-aged, conservative Trump fan. Half the people want it to be a brown Muslim man. And it's like, man, this is not the way to do this. This is not the right way to do this, and we all know it. And then for some reason, social media seems to always bring out the worst in everybody. So I tried not to add to the nonsense. I happened to retweet and comment on his tweet because I thought it was so egregious to immediately want to politicize it, immediately call the NRA a terrorist organization. I mean, look, the shooter, we need to find out more about the shooter, but the only way you could blame the NRA for it would be, was she a member of the NRA? Did she do it in the name of the NRA? And then ironically, when it comes to other ideologies that do call for violence, and then people say that they're doing it in the name of said ideologies, people say, no, it has nothing to do with those ideologies. So there's just an incredible lack of clear thinking on this. There's lazy thinking on this. And you have to try to apply those principles across the board. But no, I don't think he was happy. I truly think that 99% of people on earth are good, basically good. I think they're misguided and confused. And that's why, by the way, the left is purging so many decent people. Lindsay Shepard, who I had on the show a couple months back from Wilfrid Laurier in Canada, she did a video last week on YouTube, why I can no longer call myself a leftist. Why is Brett Weinstein, I don't know if he actually calls himself a leftist anymore, but I mean, he's been purged from the left. His defenders are basically libertarians and conservatives and those on the right. Why is there so much more tolerance for ideas on the right now? Why is that consistently? Why is there so much less smearing of people? I'm not talking about the random Twitter person. I'm talking about from the intellectual class, the pundit class, the academic class, whatever you want to call that. It just is right now. Will that flip as the pendulum swings? Probably. But that's why you got to try to have some principles, especially when they're hard to have. Okay. Hey, Dave, what books, if any, have you read that formed your political ideology? Oh, this is from Facebook. I mean, there's a zillion books, and many of them are here from some of the authors. I would say if you want to read a book that really, really helped wake me up, that I read, must around 97 or so. There's a book, Billions and Billions, by Carl Sagan. It's actually his last book. He died before he finished it. His wife, Ann Druyan, who was also a professor at Cornell, finished the book for him. But he was sort of I think perhaps, and certainly by the end, he knew he wasn't going to live much longer. And he was kind of giving a review on everything he thought. And I think the best thing about Carl Sagan is that he had a way of communicating massively huge ideas in a very understandable way. He relates things back to the way we're tribal over sports and states and colors and all this other stuff. And it's just a wonderful book. I haven't read it in a while, actually. I've got a different Carl Sagan book right there. Okay. Let's see. The Dark Enlightenment, which was referenced earlier, and neo-reaction are the roots of anti-progressivism and make the intellectual dark web look like mainstream media. Google it. All right, I guess I got to get on the Google. Okay, let's, reminder, got about 17 minutes to go here. We're doing Q&A. Just to catch you up, going on tour with Peterson. I'm at 11 of the first 12 stops. We've got Thomas Sowell next week, which I'm super psyched for. We've got a massive guest at a live event in May that I don't want to fully drop just yet. I'm going to the UK with Peterson, and I'm also speaking at Oxford Union, I think on May 13th or so. Maybe it's May 14th, but it's an honor of honors. I can't believe that they invited me, so I'm super excited to do that. I've got an event with Peterson in Seattle. That morning, I'm flying to San Francisco, then San Francisco to the UK. I'm doing some TV thing there, then Oxford Oxford Union, then Peterson, then I fly back to San Francisco to then do this super secret event that I just referenced. It's going to be a bonkers couple months, but I'm psyched, guys. Things are coming together. Okay. Let's see here. Super chat. I was going to buy heroin with this money, so you better answer. Would you talk to Cenk Uygur? I mean, he publicly said that he won't talk to me. I just don't see any real point in it, but I suppose if he wanted to, I would. Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of these people that's just not acting in an honest way. And if you're constantly attacking people, not ideas, and again, unfortunately, we see this much more. How often does someone come on my show and attack a person? Let's really think about this for a second. We talk about ideas all the time, whether you agree with those ideas or not. I had Kelly Carlin in here a couple weeks ago, who's a good friend of mine, who's a lefty progressive, okay? That same week, I had David Frum, who's a never Trump conservative. 2 weeks before that, I had Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. He's a big Trump guy. He just interviewed Trump. I'm willing to have all of these conversations, but try to think how often we're attacking people and not ideas. It's pretty rare. There is a ton of that coming out of the left these days, and that's pretty unfortunate. Anyway, I'm glad you're not going to buy heroin with that money. Who do we contact if we want to get you to do an AMA on our platform? I'm moderator of a Discord server and I've had guests such as Austin Peterson, Roaming Millennial. I love Austin and Roaming is just great too. You can go to rubinreport.com/contact. By the way, my year is basically booked, like the show, the travel, everything. But if you want me to speak at your college, sometimes we're realizing that we have a couple off days in between things, that it doesn't make sense necessarily for me to go all the way back to LA. If you want me to speak at your college or your event or conference or whatever it is, rubinreport.com/contact. I forward it to my guys and we'll do as many as we possibly can. Guys, I'm not seeing Patreon questions on here. I'm just seeing Super Check. If we could just check on that, please. I think you and Ben Shapiro should make your own video sharing site and call it JewTube. I will talk to Ben about that. That seems like it has to exist already, JewTube. Let's see. Are you worried at all that this channel's criticism of the left increases polarization among the audience, reinforcing them on the right? I'm not really. Look, have I been harder on the left than on the right? I'm pretty sure I can honestly say that I have. Part of the reason that I'm easier on the left is because I come from the right. I've also said several times in the course of these 45 minutes that there is more intellectual flexibility on the right now. So I find people, I don't know exactly if we were to really break down what it looks like. I think we've got, I would argue the bulk of it is probably disaffected liberals. Then we've got some Trump people, but we've got never Trump people. We've got science people and atheists and believers. And I get tons of email from India and from Mexico and everywhere, and from Canada and the UK and just all over the place. So I don't even know exactly what my audience is, which actually gives me a little freedom to just say what I think. But as far as, look, the horrible ideas of the right, if you're talking about like the white nationalists or the KKK or people who want an ethno-state or something, those ideas have no traction in mainstream media. They have no traction on college campuses. It's just a bunch of crazy people who have nothing to do with the foundational principles of this country. And basically, their ideas are so the antithesis of what this is, what this incredible experiment of America is, that they can pretty much be ignored. The ideas of the left are creeping into academia. They're all over media. They are ripping through society everywhere. That's why, to me, this has to be fought more. Does that mean occasionally I've given more of a pass to those people? By default, perhaps? I possibly, if you think that's a criticism of me, I can't tell you that's not legit. I am absolutely not perfect by any stretch. But what I would say more than anything else is I think what I've tried to build here is a home for people to honestly come in and go, this is what I think. Let these ideas stand and then let them stand or let them fall, right? And that's what I'm going to keep doing. Okay. Yeah, guys, still not seeing Patreon on here. I got a blank on Patreon, so if we can get those in here, or if you want to give me another iPad, perhaps. Hey, Dave, love your work. Many times I get a sense of helplessness around all the problems of the world, especially issues relating to the radical progressive types. Do you feel the same way, and how do you deal with it if you do? Look, I think inherently I'm an optimist. If I wasn't an optimist, I don't know how I could do this. I don't know how I could talk about this stuff all the time. I don't know how I could sort of be in the political landscape and all this. And I know it's exhausting to everybody. And, you know, we're running out of those places. I referenced Eric before, but as Eric Weinstein says, of communal sense making. And I think a lot of the reasons that you guys come here is because we're offering a little island of sanity in that. I definitely do get depressed. I don't get depressed about it as much as I worry about it. I am world weary. I truly am. I mean, you know, when you're like, if you see somebody and they're, you know, sitting at Starbucks staring off into the abyss, if that's me, I'm most likely thinking about the things that I'm worried about the trajectory of the world, and can we win this fight? And can we bring enough people back to sensibleness? And can we fix this? And is Western civilization really starting to teeter? I'm worried about all of those things. I think the best thing you can do for that, you know, one of the things I've been trying to do is, so, you know, I mentioned the no cell phone thing or no social media on the weekends. In the mornings, I don't bring my phone into my room anymore, so I don't get up and start scrolling around on Twitter or anything. But the other thing I do is I usually put on some classical music and I make some coffee and I try to just kind of sit there for a minute. I go out and usually feed my chickens, and I take Emma out for a little bit. Emma's the dog. And I try to have a little bit of space in the morning before the craziness, because the craziness is always there. The craziness is just a stream. You know, I was watching Thor Ragnarok, which was awesome, by the way. If DC could only get any of their movies to be right. I just watched Justice League. Man, that thing freaking sucked. But I was watching Thor Ragnarok, and you know when he goes through that interdimensional thing, whatever they call that bounces him between his world and Earth? I kind of think that that's what the internet is like now. It's just this like booming thing, multicolored, interdimensional, crazy thing. Oh, I can't wait for the haters to quote me on that one. See, Rubin believes in conspiracy theories. But it's just this thing that's moving all the time, and it's moving at light speed, and you can check in or check out. And I think that we all have to do a little bit of checking out more so that we can be a little more real with people that we're talking to, and be a little more real with ourselves. But I definitely struggle with it at times. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. And I do get stressed out, and I try to manage it the best I can, but I'm definitely not perfect in that. Still not seeing Patreon, guys. Oh, wait a minute. A zillion Patreon things just popped up. Okay, so I'm going to... what is the interview that you really want to do in the near future, and why? Keep having fun. I really want to get Bill Maher in here. Bill had a huge influence on me for many years. As I always say, he was sort of the standard bearer of the left, at least in terms of media, for years. I used to agree with him on everything. I think I now see the split between liberalism and leftism more than he does. I think he has an unfortunate habit of always calling Republicans and people on the right racist, which I just think is easy or for cheap laughs. But I totally respect him. I like him. I really, really want to get him here, and I hope it happens. I used to want to be on his show all the time. I've kind of given up at this point. I've met with enough of the people there. It's like, you guys know who I am. If you want to do it, cool. And if you don't, then that's fine. Let's see. Have you talked with Austin Peterson lately? He's making waves with pro-Second Amendment push for machine guns. So I saw a couple tweets on that, but I'm not totally sure what he was doing on that. So without getting into that, yeah, we tweet and DM, and I think he's a great guy. He's the right type of person that we need in government if you really want to change things and you want to get some libertarian or classical liberal ideas out there. So anything I could do to help him would be great. He's welcome to come back anytime. Let's see. Hey, Dave, we hear a lot of talk about encouraging open debate. Do you think it would be helpful if those in the intellectual dark web could make concrete offers to debate people with opposing ideas? Looking forward to seeing you and Jordan B. Peterson in Nashville this summer. Sure. I think Sam's doing a nice job of this. Look, you know, Sam and Jordan, by the way, even though I would consider them on the same side in the general sense of things, massive disagreements on the definition of truth and a series of other things. Sam addressed this, by the way, the differences between why it seems that people on the left are always attacking motives and people on the right aren't. So when Ben and Sam were in here, they both, Jordan misrepresented Sam's view on truth. Sam sent him an email. Jordan said, "I'm sorry, I look forward to hashing it out." That's the way it's supposed to be. Ben, when they were at a live event in San Francisco, was railing on something that Sam said that was a joke, and I know it was a joke because I was there. And Sam emailed Ben, and Ben said, "I'm sorry, I won't do it again." So there's flexibility in these quarters, regardless of what you believe, to have these debates. But yes, we should be doing more of these debates, and I think we're going to do as many of them as we can live. What diet have you been doing and how's it going? What have you learned from it? So I'm doing something called a slow carb diet, which is sort of a modified version of Tim Ferriss's diet. My brother-in-law, Brendan, who's here, is the one that kind of came up with our version. I've lost about 12 pounds in a little over 2 months, and it would have been more than that, except I've been traveling a lot, and sometimes in airports it's just hard to keep up. But I'm basically doing really no sugar, but no grains, no potatoes, no processed food. So it's a lot of protein and veggies. And it's been going good. I'm going to see if I can lose like another 6 or so. I don't think I really need to, but it's a matter of also just trying to get ahead of the curve as I have 2 months of craziness. Let's see. Have you seen Ricky Gervais' special Humanity on Netflix? It's so anti-PC on purpose, yet very funny. A good balance of sticking it to the left, but making truly good jokes along the way. That's what it's all about. I love Ricky. We've had a couple tweets. I think maybe he agreed to do the show. I got to follow up with him on that. Hey Dave, have a debate over nuclear energy with Brett Weinstein and Michael Schellenberger. That would be fun. Is Brett against nuclear in a way that I don't know? Let me look into that. But I like both those guys. I think Mike is got the right idea. If you want to find a sane Democrat, people, right? I hate leftism. Okay, this is a sane Democrat who's anti-identity politics, who wants to use technology in the right way. He is a good guy. Had him on the show a couple weeks ago. Check out the interview. All right, quickly back to Super Chat. Let's see. I did that one. YouTube, I did that one. Update on having Clay Travis and Jason Whitlock. Thoughts on CNN canceling the interview with Kyle Kashuv for retweeting Travis. Okay, I'd love to have Jason and Clay in here. They're welcome anytime. Let me follow up. Can one of you guys write that down? I'll follow up about them doing that. The Kyle thing. So Kyle is one of the students from Parkland. He's the one that seems to be, in my opinion, out there really listening to politicians, meeting with people, expressing a willingness to hear ideas. He's going to come in here at some point. We just got to work it out when he gets out to LA. But seems like he's trying to, although he's on the pro-Second Amendment side of this, seems like he's open to ideas and he's not personally attacking everybody all the time. I feel bad for these kids in a lot of ways. They've went through something that is absolutely beyond horrific, right? And now they've been thrust into the social media thing and are being attacked by journalists and media companies and all this. And it's like these kids need to grieve too, but they're getting thrust in. And I actually sent Kyle a message the other day. I said, just don't get burned out. Don't get burned out because we need voices like his out there. Okay, jumping back to Patreon. Are you going to start a book club? So I think what we're going to do, there's 2 things that I really want to do. One of them is a book club. One of them is another type of club. I think we may do them only through Patreon because we're trying to figure out how to do more community building there. And we've got such a cool thing going. You know, on Monday, I did my 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Patreon hangout. So I'm doing one-on-one chats with people. We do small Google groups. I talk to people in Australia and China and all over the place. It's awesome. So we're going to try to do more of those. And also, you know, it's like when we launch sort of new ideas, you know, to get away from some of this toxicity, we have sort of an area on Patreon where we can do that, and people really are coming for the right reasons and are really willing to bait. So if you'd like to join us, it's patreon.com/Rubin Report. Any plans to come to Europe? I will be in the UK for 4 days. I think it's May 12th to 16th. I'm speaking at the Oxford Union, as I mentioned earlier, which I can't believe. I'll be with Jordan Peterson. It's either the night before or night after. I may have one free day. I got to reach out to Douglas Murray, see if he wants to grab dinner. But maybe I'll try to do a hangout or something. And then I will definitely get back, and I need to do another Europe thing. I haven't really done it in about 20 years. Have you ever tried formalized meditation practice or use a meditation app? How do you feel about meditation in general? So David's big on meditation. He uses that app called the meditation app that's slipping my mind at the moment. It's something there. Sometimes I've done some of Sam's guided meditations, which he has on YouTube. Headspace is the app, and they also have it on planes now. I should be better at it. I try it. It is hard when you're doing this and you talk for a living and all that to just get the brain to kind of slow down. All right, we got a couple minutes left, guys. Just a reminder one more time, April 8th, Irvine Improv. I'd love to see you guys there. I'll take as many selfies as you guys want, and I'll be doing stand-up and some crowd work, and we'll do some Q&A, and it's gonna just sort of be an old part of myself that I'm bringing back to life. I started comedy actually in May of my first stand-up. Was right after I graduated college. It was the end of May of 1998. I'm old, and so it'll be 20 years next month. which is crazy. So I'm making my return 20 years from the beginning, which is actually kind of cool. Let's see. That one I did. How about a podcast with Harris and Shapiro? Yeah, I think we're working on it. We'll see what happens. Okay, and to finish up, we've got one more here. I'll pick one more on Patreon. You've had a few repeat guests on your show. Who's your favorite individual to fall down the intellectual rabbit hole with? Have any interviews made you nervous prior to doing them? So I don't think I've ever had an interview that made me nervous. There were a couple interviews where I felt that I had to ask very specific questions to understand the guest's focus. So for example, when I had Stefan Molyneux on, who I got a ton of shit for doing, and I do not regret doing it, he does talk a lot about race and IQ. That's as touchy a subject as there possibly is. Just ask Sam Harris right now, because he had Charles Murray on and then gets all these articles calling him a racist. I felt that what I wanted to know from Stefan mostly was, even putting the science aside for a second, what is it that fascinates you by this? I think we did a really nice job in the interview, and I would do it again. But yes, I got a ton of hate for it. None of them really make me nervous. You know, we had John Kasich. The guy was, you know, a candidate for president, literally walking through my house. It was actually hilarious. So we finished the interview. We do our thing in here. I loved every second of it. He was incredibly nice and friendly. And then it was pouring rain outside, and I had mentioned something about having chickens. And he's like, oh, I'd love to see your chickens, but it's pouring. So he walks through my house, walks into my bedroom. That day, we keep the house pretty clean, but that day it was just such chaos because I've been traveling. The bedroom was a freaking disaster. So there I have John Kasich standing, my bed's a mess, stuff everywhere. Jordan Peterson would not have been happy with me on that day. And Kasich is standing there looking at my chickens through the bedroom. The bedroom window. I'm like, man, what a weird life this is. What a strange thing. Okay, I got to wrap, guys. But I'm so enthused, in case you can't tell, about the momentum we have going here. I feel great about everything that's happening. Quick reminder, we just shot a little video on this. Make sure you're still subscribed to the show. People are getting unsubscribed. Make sure you click the bell to get all the notifications. Also, we're getting a ton of listens, often now more than YouTube views, on our audio podcast, which is on Stitcher and Spotify and all that good stuff. And that's it. So Sunday, hope to see some of you guys at the Irvine Improv. And then I'll meet as many of you guys on the tour with Jordan Peterson, 11 of the first 12, except for Detroit. And then I'm going to pick all the rest of them. Thomas Sowell next week. The big interview with the unnamed person in May, and a lot of good stuff coming up, and a lot of colleges that I'm going to, and all that good stuff. So thank you guys as always. And I forgot to eat this morning. Didn't interview, just did all this. I'm running on coffee and water, so I'm going to have a little something to eat. So thank you guys, and we'll talk soon. All right.